All right, scene 1, take 12. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Scene 1 podcast, a podcast where we take writing prompts from all over the internet and give them our own treatments.
And then we discuss our writing methods, why we made the choices we did, and which idea is the most producible for us, and which idea is the most pitchable for a big Hollywood studio.
I'm Sam.
And I'm Derek.
And as aspiring creators, it's important to constantly challenge our creativity with stories and genres that we normally wouldn't write about.
This week's writing prompt comes from reddit.com, from the subreddit r/writing prompts. A medieval village makes a human sacrifice to a werewolf that lives in the woods every year. This year they've picked you, which is very awkward, considering you're the werewolf. From the user CloudWatcher217.
All right, and this time we're going to go in vanilla, so no modifier. A lot of what we have been releasing recently have been stocked up from over time. So if it's taken this long to get your feedback and incorporate it into our episodes, we apologize for that, but it's just the workflow that we have at the moment.
For you guys, it'll only be a couple of seconds, but for us, it'll be 15 minutes as we try and crack open these stories.
All right, see you in a bit. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Scene 1 podcast. We just finished writing our prompts, our treatments, so we're actually going to dive right into that. Derek, how about we start with yours?
Alrighty. My film is called Full Mooned, and it's a medieval comedy where Josiah, the village werewolf, has to find a way to cover up the fact that he is, in fact, the werewolf that the village makes a sacrifice to every year. In the days leading up to his transformation, he has to find a way to not only convince the townfolk not to sacrifice him, but also make sure that his identity as the werewolf isn't exposed.
That's pretty good. I have something kind of similar, but it happens after the fact. But we'll kind of dive into that. Is there an inner conflict for your character? Do they, in what ways do they interact with people of the village? Like how do they necessarily get themselves out of that scenario, and how successfully do they do that?
I wanted it to kind of like a classic Shakespeare comedy where everything is like a lot of miscommunication. Like perhaps like he's convinced that he's not the chosen sacrifice. There was a miscommunication in like the lottery system. And so he's trying to go after like the town master who controls the lottery system to figure out why that happened, all while like his actions are getting more desperate. Because I thought, like, instead of setting it after, like you did, I thought setting it in, like, the week before could make it interesting, because then you've got the physical time limit that he has. Like, it's like, you know the climax is that he's going to transform into a werewolf. If that's the case, then, like, building to that is, like, how does he get out of it? Because he clearly doesn't want to be exposed. He also clearly doesn't want to have to go find another village. You know, because this is, like, I imagine this guy, he's, like, a werewolf that's been on the run, he's tired, and he's, like, happy that he found a village that is just willing to appease his yearly transformation, because he doesn't like being a werewolf. He really likes the people that he knows. He doesn't like it, nor does he have really any control. So he's really trying hard not to have to lose the life he's built. That's where the idea of making it like a comedy and making it more cat and mouse, like Tom and Jerry-esque, with him like going around, running around, trying to convince like the town master or the town priest, the town tavern keep, all his friends, and trying to find someone worthy to sacrifice. Of course, I think the big twist at the end would be that there is someone in the town, is like the sorcerer that cursed him, or like the original werewolf that cursed him, is also living in the town.
Yeah.
And that's like the twist, is that there are actually two werewolves. And so at the end, he's able to save the day by like killing this other werewolf or killing this other spellcaster, and that's what's able to win over the town again. And for them to find a way to appease him, which they stop sacrificing people and will start sacrificing like animals.
See, that
something like that.
That is a very interesting idea. There are a few things that I actually thought of when I thought about writing this. Is the werewolf transformation like very typical? Like, oh, it's a full moon, you forcibly transform into a werewolf, or do you transform into a werewolf of your own will? But it seems that you went with you only turn into a werewolf once a year, and when you do, you have like this bloodlust. Is there more than one werewolf? Because I thought that would be really funny if this person was like tied up to the post, and it's like, oh no, I'm gonna be eaten, guys. I really don't think they're gonna show up. And then another werewolf shows up, and you're just like, oh no.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I haven't quite figured out like the antagonist or the villain, but it would definitely be like somebody else in the town is the werewolf, or is another werewolf, or is another like witch or something. Definitely, I drew some inspiration from that game Werewolf that everyone plays.
Oh,
Yeah.
like One Night Ultimate Werewolf.
Yes, yeah, definitely drew some inspiration from the mechanics of that game. Like, if we had to make the One Night Ultimate Werewolf movie, I feel like this would be the prompt for it.
That's very interesting because it would also give stronger roles to other town members.
Yes.
Yeah, because in the past I've played a game very similar to that called Town of Salem. It's online, it's free, you could sign up and play with random people online. I enjoy it a lot. It'd be very interesting to kind of see that being translated into a film, or taking some of those rules and roles and transitioning those into this story.
I think that it would give the audience more people to connect to, more of a mystery to solve, and you could really get to see how our werewolf, like, you could really sympathize with our werewolf.
Definitely.
So that's Full Mooned.
Okay, so my movie is called One Missed Meal. After the werewolf didn't come to this year's sacrifice, people became very suspicious. Was their sacrifice not good enough? Was the werewolf dead? Was I the werewolf? Sure, it would have been very easy to just disappear and find a new village to torment, but I actually kind of enjoy this place. A free meal annually, I don't even need to work for it. Now the entire village is split between a few factions, thinking that either I'm going to slaughter them all for not bringing a good enough sacrifice, that I'm the werewolf and that they're plotting to kill me, or that people just no longer care and believe that that the werewolf is dead. I must act carefully, for if I do not, then it would mean my life, or the lives of everyone else in this village. So I kind of came up with the idea that, sure, there's like the annual requirement for bloodlust, but not necessarily within an exact time frame. I'm saying maybe a week, very, very similar to yours, similar to, oh, I only have a week to convince these people that I should not be sacrificed, or basically I'll kill them all, and that they don't necessarily want to do that. So it's funny how we went with very similar scenarios in that case, but it's interesting that we kind of approached it in a different way.
Yeah, yours is after the fact, mine is before the fact.
Especially because now it becomes a very diplomatic conflict where my character has to do their best to convince people, hey, the werewolf is still out there. Maybe I was just a bad sacrifice, and I'm a little on the lean side, like not much meat on these bones. Just trying to convince people that they are not worthy. Maybe they should go with somebody else. But now that we've mentioned it, I really do enjoy the idea of introducing like other power roles into the story. Like, specifically within the game of Town of Salem, there's this character called a witch, which controls people, or which forces people to take their actions against the person of the witch's choice.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'm thinking it would be very interesting to have somebody come in and immediately take over control, or having a vampire hunter or a werewolf hunter show up and be like, y'all sure this werewolf actually exists? I mean, I'm fine taking your coin, but the fact that they didn't show up, exactly. I don't know.
Yeah. I think what's interesting about yours too is because you have different factions, you immediately have that built in. Like, you've got the mayor's crew, the priest's crew, the witch's crew, the witch hunters, the monster hunters crew. And those are 4 factions that your character has to convince. Yours would almost make a good video game in that sense.
Yeah.
Because you've got 4 factions you've got to work between and all that.
And 4 factions you've got to like mosey on up to and be like, hey, just please don't sacrifice me.
Do not sacrifice me.
It won't end well.
It won't end well for any of you.
And I mean, I'm sure in certain case scenarios, especially for some people, it might be a better situation that the werewolf completely reveals themselves and is just like, look, I'm the werewolf. That's the reason why I didn't show up. Y'all don't have to freak out about me killing everybody, but you have to help me convince everybody else that I was a bad sacrifice, and they just want a better sacrifice. Otherwise, I'll kill all of you. And it would be very weird seeing that play out. either, oh yeah, sure, we'll help you as long as none of us are sacrificed, or, maybe we should just kill you now. It could go in, it basically could like divide them even further.
Right.
To,
Right.
hey, we know who the werewolf is, let's go kill them now, to, hey, if we help you out, just don't kill us.
Yeah, an interesting dilemma. That's a fact.
I do like this idea of the different factions, because I feel as if that could generate conflict all on its own.
So bringing this back to like both of our stories in a mix, both One Missed Meal and Full Mooned. This prompt really locks you into a certain style, genre, and setting. But
Well, I feel like it doesn't lock you into a certain genre. Like you went comedy,
No,
and I went very much more for
yeah,
a drama route.
But it's a monster movie.
Fair.
Yeah, it's a
Fair.
monster movie. Even though we both talk about two different halves of like where the story starts, we still both have integral town parts, and the town still plays a big role in it. And the great question of like, is our werewolf a good guy or a bad guy? That is like also like a big question that is posed.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes the prompt a good prompt, is that while you have a lot of room to do a drama or a comedy, even like you could do a straight horror from this, like you could just embrace the prompt. There's still plenty of wiggle room despite how restrictive it is. So
Yeah, definitely.
and I think that like I think considering how cheaply made horror films are, either of our prompts would be able to be pitchable, because most people make horror films for under like $10 million, which isn't a lot of money comparatively to for big
all
studios.
those blockbusters out there.
Yeah, and like for an indie crew, like these could easily be shortened to like a short film.
Yeah.
Especially yours. Mine probably not as much, but yours could be shortened because yours takes place after the fact, so you can tell things with flashbacks, with cutaways, with voiceover, with all sorts of different techniques to shorten it. And you could do that for fairly cheap, a lot cheaper than other kinds of movies. So I think both of our ideas are both pitchable, and yours is definitely more producible, because mine requires the comedy of a lot of people, whereas yours can have snippets of little factions. That's where I'd settle on there. But what's interesting about the story is that at the end of the day, the core conflict is, where is our werewolf gonna tread? Like, how are they gonna react to this? That is the ultimate core conflict, and that's a lot of fun to play with, because it's very humanizing to see a werewolf like either try and get out of like having to get killed, or try to figure out a way to stop what's going on.
Yeah, because I feel a very easy way to get out of this situation is just for the werewolf to leave town, move on, find a new place.
It is.
And clearly that would feel very unsatisfactory.
It would.
So unsatisfying, because it would be the easy way out. And so I appreciate the fact that we made both of our characters actually appreciate where they're residing at the current moment, so that way they didn't immediately jump to, oh, let's just leave.
Yeah. Well, I think that is the big problem. Like, if the werewolf leaves, there is no movie.
Yeah.
So making sure that the character is like an integral part of the town, and like has friends, maybe even a family.
Yeah.
You know, like,
yeah, I just thought about that.
You know, maybe our werewolf has a family of like little were children that he's trying to keep safe, and or maybe his children are perfectly normal and they don't know that their father's a werewolf, because it's the werewolf that happened after he had a family. So he doesn't want to uproot his family. So it's like, the other thing too is like, you could do a flip 180 and like make it the werewolf is a girl, and this could be like in Salem. That could be a whole nother story. You know, so there's tons of things that we didn't explore, didn't tack on, but definitely like the two big ones are like having a family, and if our werewolf was female.
Yeah.
Is that completely, because like in the context of like a medieval period or even a Renaissance period, that is just completely different.
An image that I can't get out of my head is just being tied to a post waiting for the werewolf to show up, and all of a sudden you turn into the werewolf, and then you look at everybody like, well, this is awkward. And I feel like that would be a great ending to a horror short, if we weren't going to take this into a feature-length movie style, or a feature-length film style, because that would be because where can you go from there? Everybody knows you're a werewolf now, and for all they know, that you are the werewolf that is demanding sacrifices. So at that point, you're already tied to a stake. Just light it on fire.
Or it's like one of those things where like the whole short revolves around this character trying to prove their innocence, and like you like begin to sympathize with them, and at the very end, like they're like, okay, I accept my fate, and then they transform, and the short ends with the village realizing their mistake, and the werewolf pounces at them.
Oh,
It just ends in bloody murder.
Ah, God, that sounds like the worst ending to a video game.
But like, imagine building like a short, okay, like especially if this was like the Crucible style, you find a way to make the characters that are going to be hung for being witches sympathetic, you know, in a way. Like you make us sympathize with them because they're getting witch hunted.
Yeah.
And then at the very end, it's revealed, oh no, they were trying to prevent everyone. They
were the people that knew that if we didn't like feed the werewolf every year, everybody would die.
That's like twisted and messed up in its own way, because then it's like, who can you really trust? Are people really sympathetic? Can you really sympathize with someone that's... It makes you as the viewer question your own moral capacity, which this would probably play better in a short. In a feature, you'd be really lucky if you got it to 90 minutes. I feel like you'd cap out at about 80 before it got a little long.
Thank you all so much for joining us for this episode of Scene 1. It feels good to be recording again. And if you have your own writing prompts or response to this writing prompt, definitely leave them in the comments below. We would love to see them. Who knows, you might be able to see one of your own writing prompts here on a future episode.
And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and leave us a review on iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or wherever you listen to our podcast. It really helps us know what we can do to improve and what we can do to make this show better for you, the listeners.
All right. Thank you all so much, and we will see you all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.